Okay gang, another evening meal tonight. We're going to be doing a cauliflower korma. So to start with, we're going to get our pan nice and hot, and we're going to add some of our cold pressed coconut oil, and we'll just melt that down to start with slightly, get that pan nice and hot. I've got my tea towel ready there, so we'll zhuzh that around a bit, cover all the base of that pan. And our first ingredients are going to be our 3 garlic cloves, finely chopped, our ginger, about a thumb size, finely chopped, and half a green chilli. That's what I've put to start with. If you were more spicier, more adventurous, add some more chilli. So get that nice sound when it goes in the pan, nice searing sound. While that's going on, I'm going to cut my onion. It doesn't matter how good your chopping skills are, just make sure you've got a nice sharp knife, and then that'll do the job that you're after nicely. Like I say, it doesn't matter if you're skillful with the knife or not. For a little tip is don't cut the stem part off first. Leave that bit on, that's the bit that makes your eyes water. So cut around that, and if you've got your own good way, if you are nifty with the knife, do it your way. So while the garlic, the ginger and the chilli are just sizzling away nicely in that pan on a medium heat, I'm cutting this onion away, and then I'm leaving that stem out of the way. So this is going to go in nicely. There's that lovely sound that we're after. That means it's giving it some great flavour. Okay, so we're just going to give that a stir. So that's all nicely in there. Chilli, garlic, ginger and white onion in my coconut oil. Next ingredient, we are going to add 3 tablespoons of curry powder. Okay, if you like the curry powder, add a bit more in, but we're going to add 3 tablespoons. Bear with me, it's a brand new one. Okay, so 3 tablespoons. I've got all that coconut oil on my hands. Okay, here we go. 3 tablespoons. 1, 2, and 3. 3 tablespoons of curry powder. In she goes, and stir that in. Get all them flavours blended in nicely together. That smells lovely already, hasn't even started. Okay, my next part of the recipe, I'm going to get my rice on. So, I've got 1 part brown rice, 2 parts boiling water. Okay, and that's just going to be simmering on in the background. Away she goes. So, brown rice on, 2 parts water, 1 part rice. That's just going on while I'm stirring the onions, garlic and ginger. I'm going to turn that down now, and I'm going to add my other ingredients. So I'm going to put the green lentils in first. That'll just give it a nice bit of fluid in there, bit of liquid, so it won't burn easy with that liquid going in. So that's our green lentils. Just tinned green lentils, that's gone in. Stir those in, get that flavour, and that should take any of the charring off the base of the pan. If any of your curry powders just slightly burnt it, that's that in nicely. And my next ingredient that's going to go in is my cauliflower. Okay, you can put a whole cauliflower in. I'm just going to chunk it up into blocks and then cut it just into quarters, so I've got nice big chunks in that curry. So I've sliced it and then I'm putting it into quarters. I want it to be nice and chunky. I don't want lots of little bits in there. I want big chunks. One, it'll cook a little bit better if it's in, well, I shouldn't say better, it'll cook differently. If it's in smaller chunks, it will be very soggy, so I prefer a nice chunky style vegetable. So whenever I cook veg, I always try and do it a nice chunky size. That's that in. Next ingredient, tinned tomatoes. What I will say then, we're going to put our coconut milk in first. Okay, so give that a good shake, and then we're just going to add that coconut milk. That's rich and creamy. That'll add some lovely flavour to the dish. Okay, so I'm just going to stir that around first. So that coconut milk now is going to cover all the cauliflower and get that soaked up. Now at this point I'm just going to turn that heat up slightly after I turned it down. Blend all them flavours together, and we want to get a little bit of bubbling going. When that starts to bubble, I'm going to add in my mushrooms. Now I've done 500 grams of chestnut mushrooms. I like the chestnut mushroom, they add that little bit of flavour. Add those in. And I've just, same as the cauliflower, I've cut them quite chunky. I've just cut them literally in half, and that will give it a nice chunky texture. It won't be soggy at all. And mix all that together now. So we've got the cauliflower in, chopped mushrooms in, the green lentils in, ginger, onion, garlic, curry powder, and that's all going to blend together nicely now. Okay, turning that heat up again now. As soon as that starts to bubble, I'm going to add in my chopped tomatoes. So I've got tinned chopped tomatoes here. Same as everything else, it's nice and chunky. So it's adding that bit of texture to the dish rather than it being thin. If you don't like anything textured, go for like a passenger and chop the mushrooms up small. Any of your veg, chop it up tiny if you don't like that chunky veg. When the rice starts to boil, what I'll do is I'll cover that over. Okay, keep an eye on it, and when the water's drained down, turn the heat off, and I'll leave that covered and just keep checking it, and that'll steam the rice for me nicely. Okay, this is starting to bubble nicely now. So I'm just going to make sure all the mushrooms are covered in the sauce. And as soon as them mushrooms take, they will start to reduce in size, and that will cook lovely. So last ingredient now, we're going to add our chopped tomatoes. That's those in. And I'm just going to give that a little stir now. So that's all coming together nicely. It smells beautiful already. So just stir that in. And then what we're going to do is cover this over and leave that to simmer on a low heat for about 10 to 15 minutes. I will keep checking on this though, just so it doesn't bubble over. So I'm going to let that heat up now, turn the heat up, wait for that to bubble, cover it over, and then my rice is bubbling away nicely. Just give that a stir, make sure nothing's sticking to the bottom. That's great. So I'm going to turn the rice down slightly now and cover that over. How's that covered over? Turn the rice down, cover that over. Wait for that to boil up, and then we'll cover that over as well. So we're getting on in about 10 minutes. Right, I've just came in to check on everything. I've switched the lids over. The rice was doing fine. I've just covered this over just to get some more steam in there. Now what I'm going to do is get half of my lime, and I'm just going to squeeze half of that lime juice just in that concoction of loveliness. Okay, so the lime juice has gone in now, and I'm just going to add some salt and pepper. I just tasted it a little bit, and all I want to do is add a little bit more flavour. So I've added the lime juice, I've added some salt, and I'm going to add some pepper in there as well. If you wanted to, you could add some extra spices, some 5 spice, some chili flakes. You could really bulk that spiciness up if you enjoy that. Just keep stirring through the bottom of the pan and make sure none of our peas, our beans are sticking to the bottom of the pan. Okay, so just keep your eye on this, guys at home. Just keep stirring it, checking on it, tasting it. Always taste it, see if it's what you like. You can always add different flavours in. Another thing that this likes to add in is a bit of sweetness. So if you've got any lying around the house, add some syrup or some honey. I've got some syrup in, so I'm just literally going to add a little teaspoon of syrup in there, and that'll just give it a little bit of savour. You could use some demerara sugar or some white sugar if you wanted to, just to give it a little bit of a sweeter flavour. Give that a little bit of a stir in, make sure all them textures are covered, all that flavour. And the last part of my dish now, I'm going to chuck in a handful of spinach. Okay, so I've just literally got 1 handful of spinach, and that will just wilt away in there. Make sure that doesn't catch fire. There we go. And what we're going to stir through right at the end is a little bit of coriander. We'll just stir that in, and that will just add that next bit of flavour that usually used to it your curry, takeaway or whatever. But this is obviously a lot healthier than any takeout one that you can get. You know exactly what's in that dish. So now that spinach has gone in, it's all covered. We're going to cover it back over, turn the heat down, and we're going to stir that rice. That's doing fine again. Still quite a lot of water in there. It isn't until the halfway mark I'll cover that over and turn the heat totally off. Right, keep doing what you're doing. We've been cooking there for about 20 minutes. So the last part of the job, I'm going to stir it, well, I'm going to chop up some of our coriander just into smaller pieces. I'm not a big fan of coriander, to be honest. I'm not a huge fan of it, so I always try and cut it up tiny when I have it, just so I don't get a big clump of it in my mouth. So I'm going to cut that up tiny, and then we're just going to add that in, and we're going to stir all this in that pot. And at the minute we're still on a low heat, and that's just going to bubble away probably for another 10 minutes max. I just want that sauce to thicken up, so I'll leave it uncovered now, and I'll just keep coming back every couple of minutes and just stirring that nicely. The water in the rice is 99% gone, so that's going to cover over now, and the steam is just going to steam through that rice. I'll stir that every now and again, and that's done. Enjoy your dinner.